Welcome to Northlandia, a place to bring your curiosity because here you'll find curiosities. I'm Wyatt Buckner of the Duluth News Tribune, and I'll be your guide as we discover the unique and fascinating stories here in the Northland. Here we celebrate the region's distinctive people, places, and history. In this episode, we look at how scuba diving became popular in a former Gilbert mine pit. Let's venture forth into Northlandia. Here to help us take a closer look at Lake Orbegon is News Tribune reporter Teri Cadeau. Teri, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
We're now on episode 60 of the podcast, so we're getting up there now.
We're getting there, yeah. We're over halfway to 100.
Whoa.
That's nice. That's good.
It's moving a little slower now that we're going bi-weekly, but we're still chugging along there.
Well, and that gives us some time to make these stories really quality, and I feel like that's a good thing.
Exactly. And now, listeners of the podcast, this name, Lake Orbegon, might be familiar to you because we've actually talked about it briefly on our one-year anniversary episode. You, Teri, expressed your interest in doing a story on Lake Orbegon, and as Jay pointed out, and it's still very much true, one of the best named lakes in our region that just seems like, it's the Iron Range or Begon.
Yes.
How can you have a more fitting name than that, especially if it's a former mine pit?
And actually, I found out while I was doing some research for this story, it is actually 3 mine pits flooded. They were from the same mine, but there were 3 different pits that they flooded and created into one lake. So, interesting thing there.
So the lake itself is 3
Yep.
mine pits into one.
Yep.
Okay, and is it in the city of Gilbert, or?
Yeah, it's within the city. I mean, it's down the hill. So you're driving down Main Street and you take a right and you follow this road down and you go down a very, very steep hill. I say that because I was somebody who grew up in Gilbert, and if you ride your bicycle down that very, very steep hill, you will walk it back up. There might be people who are better at and had better bikes that could maybe get up that hill, but no, you walk that hill back up. But it's a really fun ride down, and then all of a sudden there's a lake.
Mm-hmm. So just quickly give me a history summary of the lake and the mine pits and kind of the timeline of how they eventually became one lake.
So, being from Gilbert, I thought this lake had been around forever. No, not at all. In fact, so it used to be 3 different mine pits, as I mentioned. So it was in 1986 that the governor declared it became an official lake, according to the former mayor, Carl Oberstar Jr. There's a great photo of him fishing on that lake with the governor at the time, Rudy Perpich, by the way. That has nothing to do with this story, though. So it's been a lake for about, a little over 30-something years, nearly 40. We're getting close to it being like its 40th anniversary of being a lake. And so it's a flooded mine pit. It's spring-fed. And so it's a unique place. It's got super clear water, and it goes down about 400-some feet in the middle of it because it's mine pit.
Mm-hmm. So how did scuba diving come to be in this lake, Because, we have many lakes here in Minnesota, like land of 10,000 lakes and such, but why is this lake prone to scuba diving enthusiasts?
So a big thing that sets it apart is, first of all, it's a very, very clear lake because it is super deep and it's got that kind of clarity to it, but it also has a lot of different depths that people can go scuba diving to. There's a lot of different depths that they can place things at. And speaking of placing things, there's a lot of stuff to look at in that lake. So there's a huge variety of items that diver enthusiasts have placed down there for divers to go and explore. So there's things like an airplane, a helicopter, a school bus, an old car, a skeleton, more on that later, and just a huge variety of different items that have been placed down there specifically for divers to go and take a look at.
So when you say a plane and helicopter, you mean like a full
it's like a biplane, not a biplane, but like a two-seater, not huge. Okay. But helicopter, a pretty good sized helicopter too. And they have been obviously made lake safe, so they've removed anything that had oil in it and anything,
That's good.
Engine parts, anything that could possibly leak and contaminate the lake. These are people who understood when they were placing it there that they were placing it in a lake. They didn't want it to be contaminous to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so they've been down there for, I think, a little over 20 years about now, because they were placed there from 1999 to about 2000, sometime in that early 2000s range.
Mm-hmm.
As they found stuff, they just kept putting things down there. I actually talked to one of the guys who helped put a lot of those items in, and so they would either take a crane and put it out there that way, or they would get float bags and they would float it to where they wanted it to be, and then they would like sink it down. It's a whole process to doing that.
I imagine this is like, I'd hope it's with communication with the city and stuff. They're not just like some yahoos going out there and bringing a crane and dropping things into the lake.
I asked Mayor Oberstar about that, and he said, well, we didn't really need that much permission from us. More than anything, they had to contact the DNR to get permission from them because it's become an official lake now. So they wanted to make sure that was okay with them. And apparently they got the go-ahead. It's never been taken out. It's never been an issue. So
wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if that... I guess when was the last time a big thing like that was put in the lakes? I wonder if DNR today would like...
It's a fair question.
I would imagine they'd be more like, no, or they need some serious convincing. That'd be my... If I had to place a bet on if I was to try to request to do that today, I feel like I'd get a no, or you got to give some evidence or some reasons why this is going to be okay. And so how long is like scuba diving going on at this lake? Has it been since the beginning of the lake essentially, or?
I think more since the mid-90s more than anything. Also because they found it was a good place to do a lot of like teaching because it's a nice open water lake. And a big thing also about it is it's very easily accessible. You can literally drive down to the lake. Like it's got a very nice boat landing and everything, so you can get right up to the shore. Unlike a lot of dive sites where you apparently have to go find an access point all the way around in the wood. You know what I mean? It can be really kind of complicated to find an easy access dive site, but this one, very easily right there. So it's been very popular since the mid-90s, and then since they put things in, it's become more popular, as well as having the campground up the hill is a big reason that people like to go there as well, because you can literally go down the hill and from your campsite and go scuba diving.
And just out of my own curiosity, I don't know if you actually have the answer to this, but have you seen about how the name of the lake came about? Like, it's such a perfect fitting name, especially considering the fact that, it was mine pits, so it's or be gone. Like, it's gone now. Right. They took it away.
Well, obviously, there's allusions to Garrison Keillor and his fictional town of Woebegone. That was the name of the town he always alluded to being from in Minnesota in his show, A Prairie Home Companion.
Okay.
So Woebegone or Begone. They took some hints from that. But then I believe, I might be incorrect about this, but I heard that there was a contest to name it. And that was the winner of the contest was that name. I haven't heard much about who that was who came up with that name or what some of the... I would really like to know what some of the other names were, because it's just like when the MnDOT does the snowplow names. I bet there's some really, really interesting ones out there. At least I hope so. I don't know. But that seems like it was... I mean, that was mid-'80s when it was being formed. So I imagine that's... They didn't exactly post that on social media at the time because that didn't exist.
Right.
So I don't know if there's a record of that somewhere, but if there is and you know about it, get in touch.
That sounds like a perfect contest name. Like that. Like as soon as you said contest, I immediately went to the MnDOT snow plow contest every year. They're always so creative and so punny, and so I just kind of. That fits. That tracks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how often do people go scuba diving at this lake? Like is there an idea? Does anyone have an idea of how many people go and do this?
Let me just say this. All right. So I wrote this story last week and I finished it up on Friday, and I decided to go home for the weekend my parents got a new puppy. It's very exciting. I went to go visit my parents and their new puppy. And I was like, I haven't been down to Woebegone this year. I should just go down and see what the water level's like, see what it looks like. And I drove down there, just a casual Saturday afternoon, just taking a look. And I have a photo. You can see the photo in the story. There's somebody out there scuba diving, just randomly on a Saturday. You could see the little flag floating in the water. And I'm like, oh, well, that is too perfect. The fact that I just decided to come down here and there's somebody doing it. I'm like, there you go. That's what it's like. Is if anytime you're out there, you will see it. And growing up going to that lake a lot, I mean, we saw them doing it a lot. They're there quite often. But also, people literally travel from different places in the state, if not, I've heard even the country, to go scuba diving there. I talked to a couple of business owners, one here in Duluth and one based out of Moorhead, who take their teams up here to teach them how to, or not teams, but like classes here to teach them different things and go on night dives and do all the different things that they do. And in fact, there's one scuba company from the cities who organizes every year an event called Scuba Palooza.
Okay, you have my attention.
So it's apparently, according to what they say, what the company itself said, it is the largest gathering of Minnesota divers annually every year. They've been doing it for about 14 years now, and they do it at Lake Orbegon nearly every year. I don't think they've been doing it since it first started, but it's been their site for like the past at least 5 years or so. And so it's just en masse scuba divers gather and go scuba diving together.
So
do
just
all kinds of different things.
So it's just a big gathering of...
It's a big gathering of scuba divers, and that's where they pick to go.
Well, I mean, if it's the lake is as clear as it is, you know, like, and there's cool, fun stuff down there, like a helicopter.
Why not? Well, and there's different that you could go, 1 year, maybe you're only certified to dive so far, then the next year you can dive further. Who knows? Might as well go back.
And then with that, maybe we should now talk about the lead image of your story, which is that, as aforementioned, skeleton that's kind of chilling there. So, what's that about? Because out of context, like just seeing the image, like, wait a second, there's a skeleton in the lake.
It's not a real skeleton. It's a Halloween skeleton. It's plastic. It's okay. The story of that came from two of the divers that I talked to. So one of them talked about how they saw it down there and they were kind of startled by it and it kind of scared them. But it's at a depth where, like, if you're a beginner diver, that marks like, hey, this is where you should not go any further. This is as far as your like level is. Do not go any further. And so it's dressed up to look like a scuba diver and then is skeleton. So it's kind of saying, hey, stop.
It gives me like Pirates of the Caribbean vibes with like pirates beware. Like
saying beginner scuba divers beware. So then I also talked to like I said, the man Greg Joseph, who helped put all those items down there, and he was like, "Yeah, we got a little bit carried away one year. We were putting skeletons in that lake. We went up to another pit over by Aurora. We put some in that one as well. We made some fake headstones. It's a thing. The headstones aren't in Oregon. I believe those are in the Lake Mine pit over by Aurora, but." I don't even know if they're still there, but anyway, that's the thing. And he said that they decided to put them there for the fun of it. He didn't say anything about it necessarily being a warning, but I mean, it's at that level where you shouldn't go any further if you're a beginner. So
I really hope that I don't know. On one hand, it's funny, but on the second hand, I mean, I imagine safety-wise, I'd hope that newcomers are made aware that there's a skeleton there, because that could be very, very startling. If you're just like diving the first time, oh, this is cool, this is exciting. I think I'm doing okay. Skeleton! Like, I could see that being problematic if you're jumpy at all.
like one of the Taylor, one of the scuba divers I talked to, she was warned about it by her father and her grandfather. But she still came across it and was like, okay, that's right. And I will say, there's a video that photo comes from a video that her father took when they were scuba diving down there, and there are a lot of comments on that video from people being like, "Wait, is that real?" And he's like, "I don't know."
Oh my gosh. So Teri, going back now to the classic question on Northlandia, well, how does this fit into Northlandia, besides obviously the perfect name for the lake, as we've mentioned in previous episodes, that we can have a whole episode dedicated to interesting names of lakes in our region. But beyond that, tying it into the history of it, and now how it's been utilized for scuba diving and all the fun treasures in the lake.
So this place really fits because I think it exemplifies the Iron Range in a weird way, because it's this place that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for mining, but also has to find a new purpose and a new life after it became, it was no longer of use in its first purpose. And so it's found this new way of drawing people to it, and it's a pretty unique place, and it's continuing to grow. So it's kind of, I don't know, interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the odds are that there's also an underground movie theater down there?
Don't go looking for it, is what I will say. Because like I said, I was talking to Greg Joseph, and he was like, okay, so, and I didn't put this in the story, but he talked a lot about how there's mine shafts down there and whatnot that you could go. But he said, if you go into those, even the movement of your flippers in the water could be enough to like trap you. So don't go down too far, and don't go exploring into things that be careful, be wise about it.
And I don't think that's the one that has the movie theater anyway.
That is not. That's over in Evelyn.
That's a throwback to an earlier
That's over in Evelyn.
Check out
but I'm just saying, don't go looking for one.
Be safe out there.
Yes. And I have one story that we didn't really get to, but I have to tell you about it a little bit. So yes, obviously I grew up in Gilbert, so I grew up going to this beach and going to swimming in this lake and seeing the scuba divers that way. But even though I saw that happening and stuff, I didn't really hit me that this was a huge scuba diving attraction until I went to school at UWS a few years later. and I was talking to a guy there who was talking about how he was learning how to scuba dive. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Where do you go around here to go scuba diving? And he goes, oh, well, there's this lake kind of like an hour away or so. It's a pretty small town. You probably haven't heard of it. And I'm like, try me. And he goes, oh, it's up in Gilbert. It's a place called Orbicon, I think. And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of that place. So it just amazed me that somebody like was traveling an hour away. And then I found out that, people travel 4, 5, 6 hours away just to go to this lake. And I'm like, it's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. It's always fun when you're at places like that or elsewhere in our region where it's like, oh, we're like, they traveled far away, like just to come to this place. It's like, wow, like we live in a cool area, you know?
Especially because like there's so many times that people will say, oh, where are you from? And I say Gilbert, and they just give me the glazed over look like, what, where, what? But then having people having associations with it, it's like, oh, good, nice.
All right, Teri, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on this venture into Northlandia. To read the article for this week's column, as well as see photos, visit DuluthNewsTribune.com/topics/Northlandia. If you enjoy this podcast and would like to support us, consider becoming a subscriber of the Duluth News Tribune at DuluthNewsTribune.com/subscribe. Join us again next time and discover the extraordinary stories you just might miss if you're in the right place at the right time, ready to step off the beaten path with no rush to return, here in Northlandia.